Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So my name is Velvet O Clare. I am a burlesque performer, producer, an educator, a performer, like with other theater. I have a multitude of different things going on, but burlesque and sex education is kind of my biggest passion, and I have a bunch of different projects that I work on with that here in Orlando,
Oh,
Florida.
awesome. All right. Well, to get right to the questions, how long you been polyamorous, or how long you been practicing polyamory?
Well, yeah, I would consider those probably two different questions for me because because I kind of see polyamory as part of my identity
Okay.
now. So I think I've always kind of had it in me, so
Fair
to
enough.
speak. Um, but I've been practicing officially for about a year and a half, so I'm still kind of a baby when it comes to the actual practicing of it.
Okay.
Um, Prior to that, with an ex, we kind of dipped our toes and we tried some things out, and it was kind of weird, and we weren't sure. Um, but I think once I started reading about the actual what polyamory means and what ethical non-monogamy stands for, and all of these things, I realized that was something that was kind of part of who I was from for a long time.
Okay. Fair enough. All right. Well, what does your relationship dynamic look like?
Well, I definitely would consider myself solo poly. That's kind of how I choose to identify. That said, I do have two partners right now who are, um, you know, more serious maybe than others. But of course, terminology is hard. It's hard to find the right words to describe all these things. But I consider myself solo poly because I consider myself my own primary partner first.
Okay.
So I like to make sure that I am taken care of, and gosh, that sounds selfish, doesn't it? But I think it's important that we all take care of ourselves.
Yeah.
Um, but I do have, like I said, these two other partners that are very important in my life. We're active in each other's lives, and then I have a variety of other partners of differing levels, and they all have partners as well.
Okay. All right. Well, what aspect of polyamory do you excel at?
That's a good question, isn't it? Because Excel, I mean, well, of course, flat out, I'm I love spreadsheets, and I love organization, and I love calendars. So I would say a lot of the scheduling and kind of those more practical things I really, really like, and I like to think that I'm quite good at.
Okay.
But I think there's also some deeper things to that, to this aspect of polyamory and of working with people where they are. I think
Yeah.
there's some kind of parallels there. And so I think that I think that I often excel at accepting people where they are and helping them kind of figure out some things within their own polyamory journey.
Okay.
Um, so I like to think that that's something I'm good at, facilitating those kind of discussions,
Yeah.
especially when it comes like for other people.
Fair
I
enough.
think that's one of my strong suits.
All right. And what aspect do you struggle with?
Yeah, see, and there's the flip side, right? I'm good at facilitating for other people. I've struggled a long time with figuring out what it is that I am feeling, what it is that I want, and vocalizing those things.
Okay.
So obviously, polyamory is helping me with that. I'm getting much better, but it's still a struggle for me. I still kind of revert into my, um, sometimes my feelings of not being sure what I want and not being sure how to say it.
Mhm.
So that's always been something. I also we do have a polyamory community here in Orlando,
Yeah.
but I'm not very active in it. And so I tend to date people who are not necessarily in the poly community, or they're not as familiar with it. They're open to it, of course, and I'm always open about how I approach things. But that's been a struggle as well, less internally and more externally. But that's kind of where it comes back in what I was saying earlier about like helping facilitate those discussions.
Okay. But how do you address those struggles? How do you overcome them, or
Mm.
do you overcome
Well, it's still a work in progress, right?
them? Yeah.
So I listen to a lot of podcasts. I read a lot of books. I have a lot of conversations. And I think that's because, again, these are issues that I have in my everyday life, even outside of polyamory stuff. And so I think this is a time when polyamory has actually really helped me because I'm learning to have these conversations. Right now, the two biggest things that I focus on are getting over the fear, or getting over the feeling of that I should be reacting a certain way, and just kind of accepting myself where I am.
I understand that.
And then so one of the things I'm really working on lately is that feeling of should, and the feeling that I have to be acting out, be doing things in a certain way to feel like I'm doing it right or wrong.
Yeah, I understand. All right. And in terms of risk aware or safer sex, what do you and your partners do to protect one another?
Well, it's a lot about communication and just talking because, of course, we're all responsible for each other, and I don't really like to put specific rules on for other people. So I just want to be communicative and aware of what's going on. I use barriers for any partners that have penises that I'm interacting with, um, and I ask that my partners do the same or do similar things, and then I ask that if there's any time where there's a mistake or where something happens, I just really want to know about it, and so that I can take care of myself that way. So, of course, regular testing is a thing. I will say for some of my more casual partners and some of their partners, finances of getting the full barrage of tests can be hefty for some people,
Yeah.
and so that's been a struggle. That's been kind of a hurdle that we've been kind of overcoming. But again, as long as I feel that communication and everybody kind of knows what's going on, then they can make the choices that suit them the best.
Understood. Now, what is the worst mistake you've ever made in your polyamorous history, and how did you rebound from that?
Well, theoretically, I like to think that there's no real mistakes, right? That they're all learning experiences and stuff.
Yeah.
But the actuality is it's harder than that. I would say that, though, a lot of the things that I considered big mistakes were when I was trying to figure out this non-monogamy thing, but doing it unethically. So there have been a few situations where, I was like, to use stereotype, the other woman or whatever the situation was, and
Yeah.
those are things that I seriously regret. For example, a partner that I have now, with previously we had, when I say made a mistake, before we were all ethically non-monogamous, and so when we started this journey into ethical non-monogamy, we had to kind of go back and approach that with the other partner, with my metamor, and kind of deal with that. So that was definitely um, what I consider a mistake, but at the same time, it was a learning experience, and it brought us to where we are today. And we all communicate much better now, I think, for having gone through that.
Okay. All right. That makes sense. Now, do you have what self identities are important to you, and how do you feel like being polyamorous intersects with those or impacts those self identities?
Mm. Well, I'm one of those people, as I mentioned, I have a whole bunch of different projects, and I'm one of those people that I feel kind of like a different person all the time. Like, I feel like it's constantly changing. So I've actually been working quite a bit to kind of get away from the identity thing just for myself because it's been detrimental to me in the past. I've gotten this idea of like who I am in my head.
Yeah.
That said, of course, we still have these things that we identify with. I still identify as being polyamorous. Um, I'm pansexual, and I consider myself queer as well because of how those intersect and everything. I'm totally a big geek. I'm a burlesque performer. I'm an actress. A lot of these things, I travel, so I like traveler or whatever you want to say. And so these all kind of come together, and I think that polyamory has been it's been interesting as I delve into polyamory because I realize how the traits that make me attracted to polyamory also show up in other aspects of my life. So this desire to live in a bunch of different places and experience them all for what they are.
Yeah.
And it's a similar concept. So I've been thinking a lot lately about those kind of intersections and what my deep down motivations for life, how that manifests in these different areas.
Okay. Makes sense. All right. Now, do you have any groups, projects, websites, blogs, etc., that you're involved with that you'd like to promote?
I would love to, yeah. Like I said, I'm a burlesque performer, producer, but mostly lately I've been focusing on a podcast that I work on called Burlesque Stripped Down. And so we do talk to a lot of burlesque performers and producers, but we also had like a season of sex. So we've had some great sex educators that have come on the show and talk about that intersection between art and sexuality, particularly burlesque and sexuality.
Okay.
So everybody can check that out. It's on all the podcast places at Burlesque Stripped Down or burlesquestrippeddown.com. And then I have a new endeavor that's not quite ready to go yet, but I'm working on something called the Society of Life Exploration.
Okay.
And it's basically a place to facilitate exploring all different things from like sexuality to crafting, adulting skills, all of these different things that you might be interested in kind of one safe, brave space. And so that will be launching early in 2018. So depending on when everybody's watching this, they can find that at Soul Orlando. That's SOLE. Orlando.com.
All right. Awesome. Yeah, that all sounds great. Thank you so much for taking the time and showing up for poly role models.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
All right. Have a good night.
You too.
All right.